I'm excited to announce that Melissa Tittl will be joining us for our 2024 Sedona Ascension Retreat. Melissa is a producer, writer, and director. Her latest film, Code 12, explores the deeper meaning behind ancient codes and recurring symbols. Her life's mission is to produce content about the world of the unknown that contributes to the fabric of society and our understanding of existence. During her talk, she will show clips from this provocative film that presents a fascinating case for a simulated reality. Enjoy the movie trailer and then stay tuned for my fascinating interview with Melissa Tittl.
There's only one symbol that has haunted me since I was a child. A dream that has turned into an obsession. Something is trying to get us to put the puzzle together. They have laid out codes everywhere to understand it.
This goes back centuries. There may have been some type of relic or landmark left behind.
The Great Pyramid was a power generator. It was a device that would literally alter the frequency of the planet.
The Ark of the Covenant. It functioned as a conduit between Earth and the field.
The zodiac is actually a clock. And right now that clock is broken. We can't read it.
The machine we live in has its own built-in mechanism to take over. So if you don't take over, it will take over.
Eternal or eternal life. That is connected to the base 12 source code. Why was it shifted over to base 10?
My goal is to uncover the lost technology, activate the hub, and reset the simulation to make it easier for the human expansion. Of course, if the simulation doesn't get in my way.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining us. I am so excited about today's guest, my friend Melissa Tittl, who is a researcher, a director, but mostly she's a truth seeker. And she has been a truth seeker ever since she was a little kid. And she has a recent movie out now called Code 12, which is the focus of our discussion today. But we're going to explore all kinds of things: paranormal, spiritual, philosophical, and we're going to have fun doing it. So thank you so much for joining us. Hi, Melissa.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And you're going to be part of our Sedona Ascension Retreat in March of next year, showing some clips from your film Code 12. So that's really exciting. And I know that our audience is just going to love that.
I'm super excited. And you know what? I have, of all the times I worked at Gaia, I'd never been to the Sedona Ascension Retreat. So this will be my first time.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you'll love it. I mean, obviously it's in Sedona, so it's off the charts just because it's in Sedona. But this venue, Sedona Performing Arts Center, is the most premier event venue that I have ever had an event at or even been to an event, because it's literally a performing arts center with balcony style seating, a huge stage, giant PowerPoint screen, and then all the vendor tables. There's a glass wall around where you can see the red rocks of Sedona right there. And so you feel like you're in Sedona, even though you're inside the venue. So
cool. Okay, well, I can't wait. I'm very excited.
Yeah. But we are here today to talk about your phenomenal film, Code 12. And I had no idea what to expect. And when I started to watch it, like, there you are, Melissa, boots on the ground, exploring these different sites and sharing everything that you've discovered. Tell us what inspired you to create this film.
I've been in the producing, directing, and writing field for a good 20 years now. Started out in mainstream. I did the first 5 seasons of Ancient Aliens, and among that, several other shows, all mainstream networks. And I guess what kept coming up for me, I'd say, for the last 10 years, and even having the position of head of content at Gaia for 5.5 years, is I have access to all these different rabbit holes, all these different books, all these different points of study, whether it's spirituality, meditation, ancient sites, alternative scientific discoveries, you name it. I've had access to it. I've met the people, and there's just some pattern that kept coming up every time. And one of my jobs, no matter if I'm covering aliens or ancient sites or whatever I'm writing, is to really focus on the patterns, because how can I say something is true? I mean, there's so many truths, and everybody has their version of what that is. But for me as a journalist, patterns are the most important thing. They relay some kind of common understanding of some kind of truth. And so I kept kind of picking that up. But the weirdest thing was that I noticed this pattern because it was something I saw when I was a kid. It was something that was like a reoccurring dream. Now, it wasn't a nightmare, but when you're a kid, and then finally when you get a little older, you're like, God, I had that dream over and over again. And like, why? Like, it was just so odd. And what did it all mean? And of course, when I got into my place of my work and my job, and that symbol started coming up over and over, and I thought, well, if something is initiating me or trying to poke me to get involved in something, I'm like, I guess I'm listening, but it took a while. I'd say a good 10 years for me to kind of put the pieces together. And then the result is Code 12. And by the way, Code 12 is just the beginning. It's like a tip of the iceberg of like, it's like I drop a bunch of new questions and some possible answers, but it's just the beginning of that journey of like, okay, if that's true, what else is true, right?
Well, how exciting. I'm so thrilled to hear that you have future plans to have part 2, part 3, part 4, because you can expand in so many ways, especially when you start with the fundamental patterns of creation. And I hear you. I have a book called Rise Up. It's a 10-day ascension adventure to sacred sites around the world. But part of that, in the very first chapter, it's all about the symbols, right? The patterns of creation. Because when we start with the elemental, fundamental patterns that brought creation into being, or upon which creation is based, then it opens the door to so much more.
Yeah, exactly. And those are solid because, again, they're patterns throughout history for thousands of years, 40,000, 60, 100,000, cave paintings, right? Like we can't deny that it becomes some kind of human truth that we've lived with. But what that is really what this movie is about. It's so weird. We as humans all know this within ourselves. It's just that I think sometimes we need art to remind us of that thing that we all know that's within us. And so this film is really just a piece of that, and also just a reminder, a mirror of what you as the viewer already know about yourself and how the universe works.
And with patterns comes numbers or codes, right? And so you have the picture of the third, 3-dimensional tetrahedron that represents fire, but then comes in the numbers, the math, the sacred geometry.
So one of the things, the reason why it's called Code 12 is, again, I like to look at things from a whole perspective. And there's the concept of the idea that we've had 12. We are coded for 12 DNA for 12 proteins, but we only use 3, right? So this is something a lot of esoteric teachers talk about. A lot of scientists talk about our genetic makeup, our DNA. Why is it this way when we have so much more potential? So that's, so there's this concept that 12 exists in all of these places of study, and it definitely exists in quantum physics. And the 12 faces of a dodecahedron are a perfect symmetrical example of how space propagates itself, how space multiplies itself by using those 12 faces, those 12 perspectives, and then being able to propagate itself through the center, being another point, right? So there's 12 points, in the center being, for the sake of numbers and conversation, 13. And how that, if you just take that image for a second, and in your mind you think of a dodecahedron, and you think in the center is another point, and you were to travel through that, it's almost like traveling through a wormhole, and then you propagate yourself, you move into another dodecahedron. And this is how space and time actually work, whether it's in our thoughts, whether it's traveling through space, whether it's understanding how everything, whether it's matter or antimatter, moves throughout the universe. And so this is where the numbers come into play. Now, those same numbers are in all of our spiritual texts. They're in just think of any religious text, anything that you've ever followed, anybody you've ever read, they're all in there. There's a story with the 12 and the 13, always. And if you read those stories, the stories go, there was 12 so-and-sos, and then there was the 13, and the 13th was the destructor, the 13th was the transformational piece, the 13 was a character. We're humans, we tell stories in characters and in things, right? Whether it's animals or it's people. And so herein lies the most important part, is that humans wanted to keep telling the story of how the universe works. And somewhere along the line, we misread this understanding. We really got it wrong. We're like, that's a great story, it has a metaphor, but this is how the universe works. It's like we all of a sudden decided to put ourselves in a whole other number category system and disregard our connection to the universe, which is what spiritual texts are really trying to tell us. Quantum physics, biology, you name it. The zodiac.
Yes. Right. I've long had this vision, and it comes up for me in readings that I do as well. And it also, I started out like with this template presented in the Urantia book, where you have these existential beings at the core of creation, right? Projecting holographic fractals of themselves into different space-time timelines and dimensions, but it's always 12. It's this eternal soul is projecting 12 aspects of itself into each of 12 dimensions to give the 144 soul extensions, which Theosophy calls the monad. But the source is the 13th, who is the one projecting, right? And so the one in the center projecting outward.
The one in the center projecting all the multiplications, 12 times 12, 144, all the different faces of a dodecahedron. And you know what's crazy about that? What's the craziest thing about that is that in 2003, a French quantum physicist who his study is in discovering black holes, specifically, his last name is Luminet, Jean-Pierre Luminet. 2003, he felt the only way to really discover black holes was to map the universe. So topography of the universe. Could that be done? It was a joint effort between the European Space Agency and NASA. And they were actually able, given the fractals of light from stars and black matter, antimatter and black matter, they were able to actually find the walls of the universe. This is crazy. I don't know why this was a big deal. This was discovered in 2003. That shape of the universe is a dodecahedron. Spiritual text that you're talking about, there's the center, and then it reflected itself 12 times 12, 12 faces, right? That's what the spiritual text was saying. And in 2003, we have an actual wall. We have actual walls in our universe, and they are a dodecahedron. That is insane.
That
This is what I'm
is.
saying, that the spiritual text and the understanding of how the universe work are the missing piece. They're not separate. They're together. They're all part of this big unraveling of our existence.
And I just love it when science and spirituality come together and are affirming the same concept. This idea that we are encased, if you will, in a dodecahedron really speaks to this idea that within it, something is unfolding that may be being programmed. And I know you reference this idea of a simulation in your movie, right? And we know, right, there's a soul behind the simulation. It's not as if we're saying we're Sims in a video game. We're still connected to the divine source of all that is. But help us understand the connection between maybe being encased in this game or simulation, if you will.
Well, when you say that, people immediately think to themselves, well, I'm real, so maybe I'm not part of the simulation. But that's not the point. The point is, and a lot of spiritual texts will say this, right? Or people will have spiritual experiences where they'll take psychedelics, and they'll have a deep meditation where you realize everybody is one and there's this love, right? So if we think about that, if something is at the center of the creation, then we are all that thing. We are all thoughts being, let's go back to the propagation of space and time. Now, let's just say every thought that you think is in the shape of a dodecahedron. I think that the ancient Greeks really got this concept. That's why we find ancient dodecahedrons everywhere. They're obsessed with it. Nobody asked why, but here's why I think why is the answer. So let's just imagine, I'm not saying that I'm right, but let's just imagine we're the creator of this universe. We're in the center. We're the number 13. We're this unconditional love, right? That we're all made of. And every time that being, you can take this on as yourself, has a thought, good, bad, confused, whatever that emotion is, it's propagating into space and time and multiplying and turning into something. So if you think about it, it's not that we are, as the sci-fi movies will put into the fact that we are this simulated being and we're just in a video game, but we are the thoughts of something that has created us out of love, but out of like you could say to yourself when you have a negative thought, it's not because you're being hateful. It's because maybe you're afraid, or maybe you're scared, or you love someone and you're upset with them, right? So think of that as a being that's creating everything in the universe all the time. It's not that you're not real. It's just that there's a source to it. And this is what spiritual texts talk about. That once you're able to strip away all the things that created you, that are your constructs, and you go back to source, everything is love. Everything is everything. And you are part of that. And you are real. But to really grasp the concept and why it's important to understand, if this is all true, that we're in some kind of construct, that we have free will to go back to creator and change our thought, the thought form that created us.
I mean, right. So many spiritual texts talk about us as thought forms. I mean, you hear that over and again in many different philosophical and spiritual texts. We're referred to as thought forms. And so I love that idea that we can be a thought that is projected from a source, but as such, we've taken on this form, and likely it's all sourced by these fundamental patterns. And that, the fifth pattern is the dodecahedron. When you go, the fire, the tetrahedron, of course, tetrahedron, octahedron, it all comes down to the fifth, which some have called the long form of consciousness or ether.
Ether, yeah.
But it's a culmination of all of the elements contained within it. And that brings me to this idea of this 8D lattice, or this 8D crystal that you might be aware of, Garrett Lisi, this quantum physicist. And within that 8D crystal or lattice, which very well be a multifaceted crystal that looks just like a dodecahedron, contained within it are all the elements that make up this creation. And so all those elements that you see, on those big, scientific elemental charts, right? They're all contained within this dodecahedron, and it's being projected from the 8th dimension into the 4th dimension to derive 3D. So again, like, whoa, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It all comes back to these confines, these setups, it's not, I guess the most important thing is that all these places, these silos of study are all linked to each other, to the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what is so important right now. You know what I thought of when you were saying that is that they've just discovered, they've been talking about this since the 70s actually, but they've been bringing it up in Scientific American, that because it was a whole conversation of like, if we're looking for alien life form, do we even know what we're looking for? Which I think is a really good question. I mean, not everything's going to have exactly the same makeup that we have.
Sure.
And they've discovered on this planet that there are rare life forms that don't have the same makeup of all the elements that we are made of, that everything on this planet is made of. And the question for those scientists are, how is that possible? How are they even living in this existence with all the other things that need all the other elements of existence? So why I'm bringing that up is that here we have this concept of everything kind of fitting in this dodecahedron, this existence that keeps multiplying, propagating itself. And then something has invaded that propagation. Now, I just was reading this article over the weekend of Thanksgiving. I had enough of my family, so I was like, I'm going to start reading the Scientific American.
That would be me. Totally.
And I thought to myself, well, could this be a warning sign that this is why we need to understand where the source is and what we're part of? Because now evidence is coming out scientifically, spiritually, I'm sure there's definitely some aspect of this, but that there are things physically that don't operate like the rest of the universe operates, with the same elements of structure. And so maybe this is why if we live in this, for the sake of the conversation, simulated reality by thought forms, that we're being prompted to understand that. Because one of the things that one of the people that brought up in my documentary was like, well, you're asking the wrong question. If you are a simulated being, then why wouldn't the simulation just erase your thought process? Because you're trying to figure out why you're simulated, and that's not the point of your simulation. Your point of the simulation is for you to live as you're supposed to be. But I think that if more people are asking, do we live in a simulation? Maybe it's because we need to understand how it works, because there's something else coming. I don't know. That was just something that came up this weekend, because they can't figure out what this other life form is that totally doesn't even have the same elements and is operating within our existence, that everything operates the same. So it just, I don't know, strange observation that it just came upon it this coming weekend.
No, I like that, because it's like, okay, let's say Of course, there's multitude of games, if you will, being played. And it's not like we're being played. We're the avatars with free will playing the game. And there's rules to the game which define this creation or this collective reality or consensus reality that we've all agreed to, right? But certainly there's many parallel realities with entirely different programs that have been written to define the code of that particular game. But as we start to step out of the game, we become aware of it. And with our expanded awareness, we have the ability maybe to become the one playing the multitude of games. I call it our source self, or we could even say our eternal soul essence. The one projecting the holographic fractals into the game is the one behind the scenes, right? So we have these moments, and it can become, more and more frequent as our awareness expands. We become aware that we're the one watching, right? And we can even use that technique of becoming the witness, Eckhart Tolle would say, right? And suddenly you're watching yourself from above and you become aware that you are the watcher, right? So, yeah, it's fascinating. And of course, we're talking about the possibility of the end of the game. I mean, so many people on this planet right now, right, are tuned into the end times and the end time prophecy, and, spiritual people talk about the end of an age, and we're stepping into a new age. And in that case, we're stepping into another version of the game, which might be the 5D version of the game. Right.
Yeah, right. And then if you're not going to play that game and you want to be over here, you can, right? But there's a choice, right? And that is also in spiritual texts. There's that choice too. It's called different things. I don't think it's a judgment. I don't think it's anything like that. But I think we're dealing with such an expansion that to know how the universe works is the most important thing right now. I think that all the people that have been studying esoteric knowledge, whether it's understanding of aliens, meditation, ancient civilizations, right? All the things, right? All the things are so important, but they all need to lead to not that there was an ancient civilization. At this point, I think even mainstream people will say, yeah, there was an ancient civilization, but that all of that understanding is because they left behind for us the understanding of how it works, and that is the most important thing for us to grasp right now. I think, and everyone who's part of this and with their research, they're all just a piece of the big puzzle, and it's so important. I mean, even in the alien world, David Grush, who's the recent whistleblower, he just did a conference, the Soul Conference, which was army commanders, and it was a big deal. There's lots of people speaking there on behalf of what's going to happen next with the government, the corporations. But one of the things, the key takeaway of this conference for the whistleblowers, which are ex-government people, was that the potential of an alien, the existence of aliens, the proof of it coming forward, it becoming a worldwide phenomena, could unite humanity. And that was the biggest thing that they talked about at this conference. And that, to me, the idea of the technology and the existence of aliens is all part of this spirituality and understanding the creator. Because if we are all in this together, that means aliens, interdimensional beings, we're all in this together. They're not like outside of that. They're all part of the creator. So we're at a point now, we're at a precipice where all these different angles are saying, yeah, but if we understand this, the potential to unite humanity is the biggest thing that could happen. And I'm like 100% support that, whether it's my work or other people's work, and what's the next step. And I think that that was the key takeaway of this talk, and that the release of that information, just like what we're talking about, the understanding of how the universe works, is important for the next step for humanity. You know, whether aliens are real or not is not the debate anymore. It's we need to know more about how things work, because we all need each other in the next step, whatever that is. And that's something quantum physicists will talk about all the time. I mean, Michio Kaku, in one of his many New York Times bestsellers, talks about the three levels of civilization. And we right now are at zero. We're at zero level civilization. One civilization has learned how to harness the power of the sun. Now, this would mean we are not worried about where we're getting energy. That would alleviate a lot of separation and problems within all humans, right? As a given resource on this planet, that everyone will have energy to function and do whatever they need to do, and whatever device needs to be run. So we are struggling hard to get to that one civilization. And this is that point of understanding how the universe works and what's out there and how it does travel. And I think when we figure that out, we can move ourselves into that one civilization where we are more of a connected humanity and less of separations run by groups of people, and more of I don't want to say world government, because of course people get all scared that one world government, that term, it just sounds like, we're going to be taken over by the elite and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not using that word. I'm saying more of, when you're watching Star Wars and somehow they land on a planet and they have a little gadget and, things start working. That's what I'm talking about. Like not that scary term, one world government.
I do love the idea, though, that, aliens, whomever they are, these extraterrestrials, maybe ultra celestials, coming can unite humanity, because, like you said, either benevolent or malevolent, it could still have the same impact, and also could ultimately be the intention to make that shift into unity consciousness, like how the light and shadow are still both of the same source, right? And so it could, that could be the intention behind it, that comes at just the right time when humanity needs to unite toward, this higher consciousness in order to make a shift into maybe the next level of the game or the next higher dimension. Right. I really like how, the veils seem to be thinning. And so people are having more experiences, whether it be channeling or, visions in dream time, or, even encounters. It's like, it's becoming more and more and more prevalent. But then all of us, this disclosure about how, all along governments have been working directly with these extraterrestrials.
Yeah. And that gets into a whole ball of wax of stuff. And that's really not what we're talking about. But
no,
it is, to dip our toes into it a little bit, it is part of the bigger conversation of how everything works together. And I was actually very pleased that, above all the bickering and all the in between, and release the documents and this person and that person, the main focus of that conference and the big takeaway was that. And so I feel like, in a sense, we're going in the right direction, no matter who's to blame for keeping secrets.
Right. And so then back to this idea of encoded realities, and even us as encoded beings, which we know we are with our DNA, that implies a coder, right? Who is coding everything. And even that feels like there's this sense of oneness about it, right? That we're all interconnected in this neural network of the one great mind. We're all interconnected in the heart of the one great self, right? And we're all part then of the same program.
Yep, exactly. We're all part of the same program, and that, you know, one of the other things too that I think is really interesting that Michio Kaku talks about, and I mean, he's not talking about my Code 12 or any of that, but he does bring up this idea that there's something that happened in the universe. You know, this is like the theory of the Big Bang, right? That there's something that created chaos. There was some kind of symmetry that existed in space and time, and something created this chaos. And he's like, chaos in a quantum world, you know, we could break it down into watching a pot boil. Water is at one state, and then we put the pot of water on the stove and it starts creating these little bubbles because the state of the water is changing, right? It's evaporating, it's turning to steam. And the change, the chaos, is the bubbles. And so one of the theories is that when this chaos happened, the universe started to change. When I say universe, it could be beyond our universe, right? Like many universes. This whole state of symmetry all of a sudden started turning into these little bubbles. And we are in one of those little bubbles. And that's something he says without talking about Jean-Pierre's Luminet's discovery in 2003. He's basically saying, and so that means that there's millions of these universes in these little bubbles that was this result of this break in symmetry. And so we happen to be in one that has this coding of 12, this dodecahedron. But you go to another universe and it could be completely coded different. I read a lot of nerdy books, obviously. So I just when I saw that visual in my head, I thought to myself, that makes so much sense, because this doesn't mean when you hit the wall of the end of the dodecahedron of our seemingly finite universe that there's nothing else. It's just that you're in one of those bubbles in a boiling pot, and there's millions of them else out there. And the only way to reach them is through, just like you would with your dodecahedron, right? The propagation of space. The only way to reach into another universe is to go through this one. We see lots of sci-fi movies about that. But if you think about that, then you are part of something so eternal, so vast, so beyond our thought process, that even if we really grasp this finiteness that is all of us in this, all 12 dimensions, 13 dimensions of time and space in one thing, beyond that are many other things. And that should, as a soul, you are still connected to that, even if you're part of this creator, because that creator of this dodecahedron shape, this bubble, is part of something even bigger being created that created that bubble. So I mean, it just goes on forever. I mean, that's the thing. There is no one truth. There's just so many truths, and you just got, if you want to get to the bottom of it, like, man, I hope you've been going to be reincarnated for the next 50 lifetimes so that you can you can figure it out.
Right. That, I love the visual, because we know that there's this idea of, you know, this really hot universe, right, that began to cool, and then, you know, particles started to form, and all of these different creator gods that they talk about in different, you know, spiritual books refer to this idea that, you know, for each local universe, there may be a creator god. And again, like, I'm super into the Urantia book, as I've got 500 books in my library as well. And I just love to dive in and read about all this stuff. But it's talking about, for our particular local universe, they're saying that our creator son is Michael, and he created in his own way, and he liked the number 12. So he created his particular local universe to represent the number 12. But, like you said, another creator God could have created a parallel universe and he's into the number 18, but they're still all interconnected in this one shared experience. And we, as dispersed fractals throughout space-time, are connected not just to our other soul aspects, but to the civilizations at large that inhabit all of these parallel, realities and universes. And we know that we have this feeling, this knowing about the interconnectivity of everything. And I like how you said sometimes you're in an expanded state of awareness and suddenly you just go, we're all just one in love. Right?
Right. And I sometimes when I'm on podcasts and we're talking very logical things and you say that, it just gets into like woo ideas, but no great scientist has made waves, no pun intended, in the scientific community without merging that understanding of spirituality. And it's just so important. And I don't think there's a separation anymore. I don't think there should be. I think all of this knowledge, all the people that are coming to Sedona for the Ascension day are all going to be pieces of that. And it's just, I don't know, it's so fascinating. And it was so hard for me to get it out because I wanted to make sure that I was reaching people on a logical level in their mind, so they weren't going to dismiss the end point, which was we're all part of this universal vibration, right? Which is just, it's just woo-woo spirituality. But to really get people to understand that this is a collective understanding with all scientific practices, any way that you look at it, spiritual texts, carvings in temple walls, calculations, it's all leading to this one place that I know in a sense is not very dramatic. It's just kind of like, oh, it all leads back to love. I'm so bored. But I, in Code 12, I wanted to take people on a journey to understand that journey is just as exciting with all the logical parts of your brain, and you're going to end up in that same place. And I think it's time to accept that understanding, because I think that we can do great things, technologically wise, even logically wise, with that understanding.
I love how you staged the movie as an adventure. And when you're watching it, when I was watching it, I felt like I was on the adventure with you. I wanted to be sitting next to you in your Jeep as you're like, cruising around and you're on your adventure and you're discovering things.
Yeah, I know. I got some review or some guy was super pissed about the fact that it was like cheesy because like obviously like that's not where I live and blah blah blah. And I thought, well, yeah, no shit, but like the information is really good and it all makes sense. And like I know that's solid. And I think that what gets a bad rap in this this industry or this space is people like want things so raw and like shot on an iPhone and dirty, and then like somehow makes it real. But of course the information is real. You can look it up yourself, but why not have an adventure? Like, why not? Like we're all in this because there's some parts of it that are exciting. To be a truth seeker is exciting. So why not be in a 1968 Mustang in the desert, or my motorcycle, and going on and checking out these places. I mean, I think that people get so wrapped up in what's real, but then I would say, well, look around you, tell me what is real.
Yeah, right. The Matrix. What is real?
Yeah.
Staging it and setting it in such a way that is entertaining and exciting, and there's color, light, and sound. Like, I mean, a high quality cinematic theatrical production. Sign me up over the Blair Witch Project. I mean, both have their qualities, but I really like the way that you set the stage for your adventure. And I felt like I was on it with you, and I couldn't wait to see what you were going to discover next. And yeah, no, you did a phenomenal job with it, Melissa. And I just love that you're in the starring role. And of course you are. It's your production. And, the people that you had. Of course, I'm a huge fan of William Henry. And so, yeah, and he'll be at our Sedona Ascension retreat. And I just
Yay.
love how everyone's able to chime in. And it goes back to Ancient Aliens and how cool that, you were, part of that from the ground up, because it's one of my favorite of series of all time. And I've probably watched every episode and taken copious notes. But this, idea that all these different people can chime in with all their different perspectives, even though it's focused on this one particular theme. And it's really a time for that, to share our perspectives, even if this is over here and this is here, it's a time to explore.
And,
right.
Yeah, I'm so happy you liked it. And yeah, I hope all of you listening get to watch it. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Code 12 is the movie. And I'm getting so many emails from people from different countries. And what I want to do is put it on a platform so that people can view it on a pay to play space that is accessed in any country, because right now it's only licensed in the US and UK, and people in Canada can't even watch it. So I will be putting that out with some bonus material. I mean, most of those interviews were like 2 hours each. So there's lots of information that each person has. There's only so much we can put in the movie. So I'll be offering some of those bonus stuff. So that should be coming out in the new year. So we'll hopefully by the Sedona Ascension Retreat, that'll be all up and running, and you guys can watch it.
Oh, I so look forward to that, Melissa. And I know that, you're just going to keep creating and creating. And I'm so excited that there's going to be part 2, 3, 4 of this Code 12 adventure, because it is time to share this sacred wisdom, this cosmic knowledge, and, all the big questions being answered. Who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? Where are we going? Right?
Exactly.
I want to know. I have insatiable curiosity like yourself, my friend. And I love to read everything to do with science and religion and spirituality and quantum physics and you name it. I want to know it, because we are here on a journey to know thyself. And I think really that's the ultimate takeaway, is we are curious, those who really start to awaken out of the mundane reality and look around and say, what is all this? And who am I? Right. And then it's like, we can't get enough knowledge, and we just have to know on this journey to know thyself. And then there's a compulsion to evolve, this evolutionary impulse, right?
I agree. That is the point. That's the point.
That's the point. I had to know the meaning and purpose of life. And I was like, the meaning is to create and the purpose is to evolve. And it made me feel a lot better to have an answer. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. You're just such a talented director, producer, creator, and thank you so much for sharing that with us and creating deep and meaningful experiences for everyone to enjoy and learn from.
Thank you so much. And I guess I'll see you guys in March.
Yay! Can't wait to see you then. Thanks so much, Melissa. Take care. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.
You're invited to come to Sedona, not just for my Sedona Ascension Retreat, where you will experience enlightenment, inspiration, and empowerment. Come to Sedona for the magnificent Red Rocks. Welcome to the Sedona Ascension Retreat. We are here in unity, community. That's what this event is all about. Is gathering like-minded souls, the children of love and light, to come together as a powerful force for creating heaven on earth, for creating more peace and unity and harmony, in love with one another,
enter to a higher galactic energy.
An emergence of heart-centered consciousness.
Allow the spiraling vortex of Sedona to raise your vibration